Good morning. I'm Phil Owen with Communities for Recovery. I'm a peer recovery coach with the Targeted Response Team. Today I have my good friend Daniel Sledge. Good morning, Daniel.
Hey, good morning, Phil.
Well, Daniel, can you tell us about your program? Give us a little bit of your background and the program that you work with, the agency you work with in Williamson County.
Yeah, so it's the Williamson County Mobile Outreach Team. We're under emergency services. We're underneath EMS, and under the TTOR piece, we do the big thing is like post overdose follow-ups. So go out to people's houses and try and initiate and engage after a non-fatal overdose and link to care. The basic main thing we want to do, man, is like say, hey, can we drop off this Narcan kit and show you how to use it, and just talk about some ways to reduce risk of overdose, in the future and stuff, and go from there. And then, if somebody would like to engage in any sort of treatment, medication assisted treatment in particular, then we can, link them into that, hopefully as seamlessly as possible.
Okay. So for our audience, Narcan is an opioid overdose reversal drug, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you give me a little history about, now I'm seeing Narcan everywhere. As a matter of fact, Communities for Recovery, we have Narcan, we do Narcan trainings, we distribute it, but we're not a clinical organization. Can you give us a little background about how Narcan came on the scene and why people that are not doctors are able to distribute it?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Phil, so this is going on YouTube, right?
Yes.
Woo! Don't forget to like and subscribe, y'all.
That's my buddy right there.
Okay, yeah, so Narcan, the generic name is naloxone. All it does is, very simply, there's an opioid drug attached to an opioid receptor, and in an overdose, the receptors that we have are saturated with all these opioid drugs, right? Well, Narcan comes and it kicks off the opioid drug from the receptor. Anyway, it's a really safe medication, and so that if you're wrong in your diagnosis, if somebody ends up overdosing on, let's say, something that's not an opioid, we'll say alcohol and Xanax or something like that, and you give them Narcan, all it's going to do is attach to the opioid receptor, which in this case, alcohol and Xanax wouldn't have anything attached to it. It's going to occupy that space for 30 to 90 minutes, and it's going to get up and leave. So it's really, really safe. It's safe. I mean, honestly, man, there's a way better safety profile than Tylenol. You know what I mean? Something everybody has in their house. And so, lots of like harm reduction is pushed, and had already been getting this medication out. And then it wasn't until things came more mainstream that there were policies about it that allowed that, like legislation that allowed for, anyone in the lay public to have Narcan and to give it in a suspected overdose. In Texas, the Tony organization partnered with Senator Royce West in Dallas, and so they helped get Senate Bill 1462 passed so that we could have it in Texas. And there's standing orders at pharmacies, and anybody can give it in a suspected overdose. It's like and not be liable, criminal or civil.
Right. Well, I had overdosed in San Francisco many years ago, and I wasn't sure how they brought me back or what exactly the process was. I think they had seen so many heroin overdoses at the time that there was no excitement around me. I woke up in the hospital and they were released. There was about 12 beds around me, and I really just kind of took it for granted at the time. I think the first time I really understood what Narcan was through a man, Mark Kinsley, who we both know. And I always think of Mark Kinsley as been such a leader in the movement around opioid overdose reversal in Texas. So I just kind of want to give him a shout out because he has always done so much to spread the word about enabling breathing and this sort of thing.
Oh yeah, Mark and Charles, they're like Narcan cowboys. They're out there doing it. Mark would hate that. He doesn't want to be a cowboy. We're gonna get him in a cowboy hat one day.
Right. Well, so in Williamson County, you guys have a team that goes out and you're working with people that have an overdose event, opioid overdose event. I know one thing that's special about your program is you guys have traditionally worked with a peer recovery coach. And has that been helpful in your efforts?
Oh yeah, that's a huge piece of it, Phil. Is to have it's hard to show up to somebody's house in a uniform and a radio in a county emergency vehicle. I mean, even if we're able to call ahead and somebody is still expecting that, it's super intimidating,
Yeah.
And so utilizing a peer coach who's dressed like with Slade, super hip, right? Like, I mean, styling,
Super hip, yes.
and with the beard and everything, and then just he's got his laminate and his ID, and then I mean, sometimes like we've done it to where people don't answer the door, if we're there, someone in uniform and stuff, and and someone's there, and then Slade will go and he'll do it, and so basically it's good to have just a person that's not intimidating looking, and then can relate to that person.
I agree. The Heroes program in Houston, the coach was telling a story about how she went out to a peer's house and went to the front door, and there was no front door. It was a nailed up curtain across the front door.
Yeah.
And I think, how that might, I mean, it looked like a shanty or a vacant house, it looked like a squalor, and it was recognizable to her, and I think of that, and I think, that sometimes for people that are in recovery or that have been a peer or have lived experience, they get those things. They've been there before. It's kind of, there's a normalcy to it that's different than what we consider normal with the community at large.
Yeah, absolutely. And then to, peers can relate to folks in a way that others cannot, and so for a peer to be able to go in, let's say we talk to somebody in the ER and they don't want to hear anything, or they're upset or something, and a peer says, look, man, I was in this exact room,
Right.
X number of years ago. I was getting held down by the nurses, getting a shot in my butt, to calm me down.
Right.
And so I think, like, people listen, and it's not that we and the peer are there to shove any kind of recovery agenda or anything. It's just to, like, engage somebody and, like, look, we give a crap about you, and we're here to support you in any way we can, or any way that you would like.
Yeah, and I think that's the key too, that you would like, the person's choice, that person-centered approach, and as peers, we are not only able to work like that, but we're trained to work like that, and let somebody make their own choices and let them be the experts in their own recovery or wherever they want to be in life. So in Williamson County, we record this while we're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm curious as to find out from you what has changed in your day-to-day routine amidst the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, so some of the biggest things, Phil, is that, in the first responder world, COVID is, there's obviously a lot of resources being directed toward COVID, and it for good reason, you know what I mean? But for the TTOR stuff and the post overdose work and everything like that, you know, it's hard because, or really any other work that a first responder organization is doing that's non-COVID. So in essence, you're spreading, you know, resources even thinner. And a lot of times they're pretty thin to start out with, you know. So that's one of the things. You know, the other thing too, man, is like, it's not just, you know, it's not just the post overdose stuff right now. We're responding to just doing a lot more case management, you know. And so a lot of it would be, you know, people who are losing their income because of COVID job loss. And so now we're, you know, we're helping scramble to find them just food and shelter, you know, the best we can.
Right.
So it's kind of, everything's just in, you know, this emergency mode,
Right.
even more so.
So to be clear, the importance of maintaining case management supports for these people that have experienced overdose is because it's hard to maintain any quality of life without shelter and food. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. Well, and it's hard to maintain any life, you know, without food, right? But like, you know, yes. I mean, obviously it's crucial, man. And like, you know, we can't discount the importance of housing, you know, and everything like that. It's so right now, you know, if you have this population that's unhoused, well, because of COVID now, I mean, it's
Right.
been a spike. And so resources were already scarce, you know, pre-pandemic, you know, and so now where we're at, it's even more difficult, man.
So for those individuals that you're seeing post overdose, you're checking in with them, you're giving them Narcan, uh, you're asking if they want help, what that help might look like. I know the options that are out there are medically assisted treatment, detox, and traditional treatment. Are you finding it difficult to get them connected to those services?
Yeah, that's another thing with COVID is that, like, and I mean, you've seen in the news recently in our area where large, like, major, you know, treatment centers are shutting down, right, because of, you know, bankruptcy and all that kind of stuff. And so the other thing too is, like, there's a detox in our area that is closed as detox beds. There's you know, outpatient buprenorphine that's not taking new patients, you know,
Right.
and it's all related to COVID and everything. And so it's just that it's that much more difficult to now to get people connected to treatment who want to get connected to treatment. It's like, and where we are, you know, Texas, Williamson County, Texas, you know, it's like the status quo was hard enough. You
Right.
know, pre-pandemic, it was difficult enough as it is trying to get someone connected to resources. But now, with places closing or not accepting new patients, it's like, man, that's you know, that's just a, I don't know. It's like a triple brick wall.
Sure. So in the already challenging landscape, we're seeing more and more barriers um, thrown our way amidst the COVID-19 situation. So with that in mind, other issues that make it difficult right now, I'm understanding that there's a surge in overdoses in Williamson County currently, and I believe Travis County even announced the same thing. Can you explain
Right.
why that is?
Yeah, the overdoses since the beginning of April, huge spike, man, huge spike, and they're all related to pressed pills. You know, and you know, the ones that we noticed from the EMS runs are the blue Oxy 30s and the white Xanax, 2 milligram bars. It's presumed fentanyl just because of the way the overdoses present, right? Somebody's, standing up talking, and then the next minute they're on the ground, not breathing, and so, and then many of them have been able to be resuscitated, fortunately,
So,
and obviously with naloxone.
so they're resuscitated with naloxone. Since naloxone doesn't affect anything other than opioids, that narrows it down. So there's definitely an opioid component in these pills.
Right.
Or naloxone wouldn't do anything.
Correct? Right, exactly. And like, correct. So if you think about Xanax, somebody took a bunch of Xanax and it was real, from your medicine cabinet or whatever. Narcan, naloxone, it wouldn't work on it, because
right.
It's not an opioid, it's a benzo.
And to be clear for the audience, when we're talking about pressed pills, we're not talking coming from a pharmaceutical company. We're talking about bootleg pills that people are pressing at home or illegally.
Oh yeah. They're counterfeit. So they're fake, but they're, they've got the same color, size, shape, imprints as the prescription medications. What's scary, man, is that these pills right now that are going out they're so freaking hot that people who are just using partial of one pill are overdosing,
So
and
the
so
potency is super high in them.
Yeah. And we know it's fentanyl. A couple of the people have used a test strip, and on residue that they may have had in the container the pill was in and stuff, and it's positive. And we knew it would be, but it's just having that extra proof and everything like that.
Right. So once again, proving the value of fentanyl test strips, which generally, do you guys carry fentanyl test strips, or do you know where people can get those?
Yeah, we carry them. We distribute them. We got I won't get into but basically,
certainly we're not encouraging use of illicit pills, but what we are saying is that as harm reductionists, we implore the use of fentanyl test strips for people's own safety.
Oh, big time, man. And it's like, okay, if me and you, Phil and Daniel sat here on the internet and we said, hey, internet, hey, everybody, don't do drugs, right? Or we could even just say, don't do oxys and Xanax.
Right.
Right. And if we sat here and we thought that was going to work,
right,
then that would be a delusion,
Right.
And so, since knowing that prohibition doesn't work and it never has, we got plenty of evidence, from 100 years ago in our own country with alcohol, right? All prohibition does is it drives stuff into the illicit market. It drives it underground, which then increases the crime, and risk associated with that substance, including adulterants and poisoning in the substance. And so any way to reduce risk. So knowing that, somebody says, yeah, I'm going to use pills anyway. Okay. Well, let's talk about ways to reduce your risk of overdose. Fentanyl test strips is a huge part of that, and for some reason they're controversial. They shouldn't be, because all they do is save lives, and there are data and research that people can go online, look at the Brown study and everything, but they reduce overdose.
Right. Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Daniel Sledge from the MOT team in Williamson County. I sure do appreciate having you on. I always learn a lot when I get a chance to talk to you, and certainly appreciate the job that you guys do. And I'm Phil Owen with Communities for Recovery. Like Daniel says, like and subscribe.